Howdy. Quick little note here at the beginning that I referred to these sets as the instruments of Carnage throughout the first half of this video, where they are in fact the implements of Carnage. I didn't spot this until after I had already cut everything off of the sprues, otherwise I would have just redone the video. So again, just a little note here at the beginning. I didn't want anybody to be confused, and I wanted North Star to know that they sent their sprues to somebody who can't read and who is a giant. Hello friends, it's Dan. Welcome back. Welcome to another plastic miniature review, or reviews, as is the case here, for the Instruments of Carnage 1 and 2 sprues produced by North Star. And as with any sponsored content, you deserve to know here up front that it is sponsored because North Star sent these to me to review for you. So huge thanks as ever to North Star for their support here. This is also going to be an unusual review, I guess kind of on two counts. One, because we're reviewing two sets simultaneously here, but I was looking at the sprue contents and I determined that I think it'd be better to do this in one shot just because they work so well in conjunction with one another, and I think like at the build step it'll be better for me to be able to draw from both sprues. But it's also going to be unusual because this is a 1/72nd scale kit. The human figures on it are roughly 20 millimeters in height. So that's unusual for the channel because we fairly exclusively deal with multi-part plastic 28 millimeter figures. So roughly 148 to 156 scale, depending on the exact miniature and manufacturer. However, there's really two companies I think that could send me anything they want, and it's going to get reviewed, and North Star is absolutely on that list. And we also have looked at plenty of their multi-part plastic 28 millimeter sets. And so this is also plastic multi-part set produced by the same company, so it's definitely adjacent enough that it's worth taking a look at here. So I mentioned this is the Instruments of Carnage 1 on the left, which has been out I think for a couple of years now, and then Instruments of Carnage 2 on the right, which just came out very recently. And they're both produced ostensibly anyway for the Gaslands miniature game, which is kind of like Mad Maxy dystopian car combat miniature game that a longtime subscriber pointed out to me was specifically made to work in the same scale as like Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels cars, which I think is also the same scale. I'm going to get the train scale wrong, but I think it's HO scale for trains is that same scale, like 1/72nd scale, or roughly 20 millimeter for humans. If I'm wrong on the train scale, I'll pin a comment, but I'm pretty sure that's the right one. Anyway, so this is pretty cool. It gives us a unique opportunity here to look at some multi-part plastic sets from North Star that aren't from their normal ranges, and as I have some Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars that I was able to wrangle from my son's room, I'll be able to do some kind of unusual conversion work here to see how these sprues work. So if you're new here, welcome. Again, this is kind of an unusual set for us, but it's going to follow the same format that we normally have, which is that we're going to look at each of these sprues in detail. I'll give you an idea of what bits are going to come on it. We're then going to assemble some of the figures that are on here. I'm going to do some conversion work with, again, my Matchbox cars, and then we'll do some scale comparisons to see how they scale up, maybe with some 28 millimeter figures in case you were curious about that. But also I have Matchbox, Hot Wheels, it looks like another manufacturer too. So I'll give you an idea of how big these figures are, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So if you were to pick these sets up for yourself, I have one sprue of each, but I think they're 12 pounds on the North Star website. What you would get are 2 copies of each sprue. So again, one set of 2 sprues is going to run you about 12 pounds, but again, that's going to vary depending on which distributor you get it from. I think it's a very reasonable price point for 2 multi-part plastic sprues. So let's isolate one of them here. I think it makes the most sense to work with the Instruments of Carnage 1 first, and I think I'll put a little subtitle down at the bottom just as a reminder of which sprue we're looking at, because as I said, this is unusual for the channel that we're looking at 2 different sprues from 2 different sets at roughly the same time. And I'm not familiar with the game itself, but again, it makes sense superficially what it is we're trying to represent here, which are a bunch of kitted out cars in some apocalyptic world that are just trying to destroy each other. Kind of like if anybody played Twisted Metal, I was a big fan of that game back in my PlayStation days. So, or as I said, like some Mad Max. So it looks like the main, again, this is the Instruments of Carnage 1 sprue. So the main contents are these 2, or 1 motorcycle, but 2 bits for the motorcycle in the center, or a dirt bike. Right, it looks like there are then some optional wheel options that go around that. So again, potentially to supplement with maybe your Hot Wheels cars, or if you have some 1/72nd scale vehicle kits, like if you wanted something maybe slightly nicer or more detailed than just a Matchbox car, you have some options here. Supplemental engine. That's my main observation between the two sprues, just kind of straight away here, is that this one looks like more of an accessory sprue to be used maybe in conjunction with your Matchbox cars, whereas the other one, it's dominated mostly by, it has a vehicle like a dirt bike as well, but it also has like a buggy on it. So this seems like more of the accessory upgrade sprue for your existing car. So again, a couple of engine blocks here, some tires like we looked at, some just armor plating if you wanted to strap some metal on the sides of your vehicles, which I'm definitely going to be doing. A little plow option here, or that's more of a ram. There's a plow over here. And the detail looks really, really good. Again, this is 1/72nd scale, so smaller than what we're used to from Northstar, but still the same quality. And then over here you got a couple of riders, which are all kitted out with like different helmets. Kind of sci-fi looking there. Some optional steering wheel here. A couple of gun options up here. Some like MG kind of looking machine guns. Maybe to strap to a hood of a car. This is like a sound blaster kind of cannon. Looks like exhaust here. Getting like some grenades. It's really cool and inventive that, again, like you could probably use that as an exhaust if you wanted to as well, but it's clear this is really open-ended. I love open-ended designs on sprues where they're not really prescribing what you should be using this for, but to just have some loose missiles, for example, to strap wherever you want, or some loose exhaust pipes, as is the case here. Like this, I don't even know what that is, but it's cool, right? Maybe to hold something else, even just like a canister or something like that. I don't know. Same thing here, like with these just big pieces of sheet metal. Oh, there's actually another plow here too. But you can cut those up in like a jagged way and strap them on the side of some vehicles. That's pretty neat. Looks like another either exhaust or like sound blaster. These weapons also might correspond to some of the Gaslands rules, so I apologize for not knowing that if that's the case, but some of them look like that's some kind of minigun. It's like a Browning 50 cal machine gun. Again, we saw the MG over here, but that's much more futuristic or sci-fi looking. A couple more machine gun options here. This one's really cool. Reminds me of like a World War II era like machine gun that would strap into the front of a fighter plane. And it looks like some kind of harpoon launcher here. So there you go. From a print standpoint, it's really nice and detailed. It's what we would expect from any Northstar kit. So nice to see that even on the scaled down 1/72nd version, we're still getting all that quality. And as I said, my favorite part about it is just how open-ended it is, that you can use this for pretty much whatever you want. So with that foundation out of the way, let's then take a look at the Instruments of Carnage 2. So just as a reminder, there's no one set, at least currently, that contains both of these sprues. They're two individual sets, Instruments of Carnage 1 and 2, and if you pick up either box, you're going to get two sprues, two copies of the sprues that we're looking at here. So this one I mentioned is mostly taken up with a buggy bit here in the middle, and then there's a driver and a gunner option for that as well. So talking about the first sprue being really open-ended, this one is a little bit less open-ended because, again, so many of the bits are meant to go with the buggy or the motorcycle or the dirt bike. But yeah, great detailing here. Looks like a roll cage over here for the buggy. Those pieces, I think, also go with the buggy. I'm not sure if it comes with any kind of instructions. The first one certainly doesn't, because you can use them for whatever you want. But I'm not sure if the Instruments of Carnage 2 come with instructions, but it looks reasonably straightforward to put together. Again, you got some wheels here that'll strap on there, some riders, a gunner. And then over here, it looks like we've got another dirt bike. This one is deconstructed compared to the one we saw on the first sprue. It looks like that's your rider. So you get the front piece, the wheel. So you might be able to like pivot it a little bit too. But again, detailing looks really good, even on like the clothing on these guys. I think they'll paint up very well. You have this like swivel arm, like a wrecking ball, that it can go on either maybe one of those Matchbox cars or on this buggy if you'd like. Got a bunch of oil drums, looks like 4 of them in total, scattered around the sprue, which would be nice even just to stack on top of a vehicle. You got 5, I guess you would call them petrol cans in the UK, but here in the States we would call these gas cans. So 5, 3 up there, 2 down here. 1 like CO2 or nitrous canister, or I guess oxygen canister. Can be filled with whatever you want. And this bit's really cool. This would be great even for like Necromunda or Kill Team. It's a little RC car with dynamite strapped to it. So you're going to get 2 of these in the box, because remember there's 2 of these sprues. And then, yeah, a couple other accessory bits like a machine gun up here to go on the back of the buggy. Again, driver, gunner, motorcyclist. So again, another successful sprue here. So I'm really eager now to use these bits. I'm going to do my best to use all of them. I've got a number of Matchbox cars here that I'm going to try to use in conjunction here. So let me cut here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to just kit bash a bunch of Matchbox cars. So stay tuned here. Alright, so I did a lot of assembly here. If you watched my painting video I just did on my Dogs of War Ogres, I mentioned that the speed paints in that were some of the most fun I've had painting in a while. These, I think, were some of the most fun I've had building anything in quite a while, just because they're so ridiculous, and there's really like no wrong way to assemble things. So I'm going to show you the like actual miniatures first, then I'm going to show you my conversions using my Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. So again, this is from the Implements of Carnage 2, the buggy, and then the gun that I just strapped onto the front is, I think, from the 1 set. There's some optional like armor plating and a casing for the engine, but I wanted you to see all the bits inside. Here's the motorcycle from the 1 set. And I think they sell these separately as metal bits too. Be aware too that both the motorcycle and the dirt bike have a little square base that's optional. I use those as pieces for the guns, just as little platforms for them to sit on. If you do that particularly for this dirt bike, you'll see that he doesn't have a platform to sit on. But frankly, I think if I were doing this for myself, I would put him on some kind of proper base, just a little flat round or something, like what you can get from Stargrave would probably work out well. But you can see here too the design difference between, again, Implements of Carnage 1 on the right and 2 on the left in terms of detailing, design. And here's this sweet little RC car. So then I got real crazy with it. So let me tell you, this is a Maizo brand. I think the rest are a combination of Matchbox and Hot Wheels. This was these are such a hoot to put together. Many of the bits that you see here are from the Implements of Carnage 1, which, as we saw, is mostly like designed for this kind of work, whereas the other one has a little bit of that, but is dominated mostly by like that big buggy bit. So this was just like ridiculous. It was so much fun putting these together. Again, you don't need any instruction sheets. Just make it up as you go. This here, even you can see like I cut off some bits of sprue to make like a rail, like roof rack system for this truck. This is a Matchbox, it looks like. And then I just threw those like bits of metal up on top of them. That's why I found it just kind of happened naturally. It just kept building on itself. Like I would strap something on one of these cars and then see what else I wanted to add. Some oil drums in the back. These are also great, I think, as like loose terrain or accessory pieces. Some of those bits of metal that I just broke in half and strapped on like Dora armor. So here's one too, again, using some of the armor that was actually designed for the buggy, but you don't have to. And then using that like tow wrecking ball option here on this one. It's just so much fun just to be like as creative as I think you would be like going back to your days maybe as a kid, like playing with Legos, where you just do whatever the hell you want. And that's the feeling I got from this. Whereas other miniatures, even though if it's multi-part or, multi-pose, you can still do whatever you want, but you are, I feel like, more limited than you are here in terms of creativity. Like a human miniature needs to be assembled in a certain way, whereas like that gun bit can go wherever you want on a car. This one's probably my favorite. So yeah, it was an absolute delight putting these together. Let's throw them on the Lazy Susan and see, I guess, how they scale up together. Maybe I'll bring in some 28mm figures too. Probably one of the silliest scale comparisons that I've done, but I did want to show you these cars kind of side by side here, just to give you an idea how they all scale up. I threw a couple of 28mm, like again 148 to 156 scale figures there, just to show you that they are larger, because again these are designed for 1/72 scale, like 20mm figures. But I could see, I guess, some application, like the buggy there. If you're like an orc player, I think you could probably squeeze a grot in there to make some grot assault buggies or something like that. So what's the final verdict? This was such a fun surprise and really enjoyable experience putting these together that I recommend everybody pick up a set. Like, obviously the detail is there, like from a quality standpoint, even on little bits here that you would expect to see, like in a 28mm scale North Star set. But the open-ended nature of these sets made it just so freeing from a creative standpoint that it really was kind of like almost cathartic. And the price is right too. It's like, certainly, so for example, if you're a Gaslands player, you're definitely familiar with the Implements of Carnage 1. Probably have multiple copies of that in your collection. So the Implements of Carnage 2 is definitely for you because of, like, what is it, 12 quid for even just these two buggies, because remember, you're going to get two copies of this sprue from the Implements of Carnage 2. So I think the two buggies alone are worth the price of admission. Everything else is gravy. You're going to get a bunch of these oil drums, which work great, as accessories on your vehicles, create some oil slicks or something. Or again, like terrain pieces even. You're getting two of the dirt bikes, and some of the other like little bits that we were looking at. So again, if you're a Gaslands player, Implements of Carnage 2 should be picked up. However, Implements of Carnage 1, I think, is for everybody. There's actually two specific kinds of hobbyists that I think would particularly enjoy this set, this Implements of Carnage 1, which is, one, if you've got kids in the like 6 to 9 to 10-year-old range, who are maybe into like Matchbox cars, right, but don't really care about scale modeling. This is such a fun way to kind of bridge the gap between those worlds with something that they're interested in, something that you're interested in, to make these fun little cars with like no pressure, right? And I think it'll be really cool as a way to kind of introduce them to the concept of building miniatures by sort of like half building a miniature, right? And then you can paint it up together. I think I'm going to paint these with my daughter, right? So I think it's just a cool way to kind of get them into something that you're into and make some cool little cars with them. But the other angle I want to bring up here is that if you're into the hobby, but you haven't really had your mojo in a while, right? Like maybe you, like me for a time, where I know for a while I was just kind of like doing this, watching other people build things or watching other YouTube videos on like reviews or painting content, but I wasn't doing anything myself. I wasn't really feeling inspired to work on anything myself. That's totally okay. We all, I think, go through phases like that. Pick up the Implements of Carnage 1. Pick up a cheap box of Matchbox cards, or if you've got some in your house like I did, just use those. And do what I did, just like make some silly cars. And I'm telling you, there's something really freeing and I think inspirational about this, that maybe you'll find yourself wanting to build some other stuff too, paint some other stuff too. But if not, that's fine too. But it's just something to consider. Thanks again to North Star for sending these our way. These are, again, I'll say, were a delight and a surprise to put together, and they were really loads of fun. So I hope they put out some more for this range sometime in the future. Speaking of the future, we've got still a wall of North Star review content coming, so stay tuned for all of that. Appreciate you dropping by for this one though in the meantime, and until next time, happy gaming.